Storing your dog's food properly isn't just about keeping it fresh. It could be the difference between keeping your pup healthy or unknowingly exposing it to dangerous toxins. Hi, I'm Paulina from Dogs Lounge. This is Benji and you're watching Questions with Benji, where we answer the most common questions from dog guardians. And in today's episode, we'll be looking at safe ways of storing dog food. If you want to keep your dog safe, here's what you need to know about proper storage, whether you're feeding dry, wet or raw food. So let's start with kibble. First thing I would recommend would be to buy smaller bags. I understand it might be tempting to get the biggest bag available to save time on getting to the shop each month, but if you have a small dog and get a bag that will last a year, there is just so much that can go wrong, so just don't do that. Next to remember is where and how you should store the food after opening the bag. A trend, especially with large breed dogs, seems to be putting the bag somewhere out of sight, and that place is usually the garage. And it makes sense, right? You can't easily hide a 12-kilo bag like you would a smaller one, but keeping it in a place like garage, which in most cases is not properly insulated and subjected to various weather conditions, is not a good idea. And why that is, I will explain in a moment. Then we have the matter of how you store it. Many people transfer the food to another container and discard the original bag. If that's what you do, please stop. Manufacturers invest time and money into the packaging, and it's not just about the aesthetic value, but also to keep the food fresh for as long as possible. So if you want to add an extra layer of protection to the food itself, keep it in the original bag that you close tightly and then put it in the airtight container of your choice. So just to recap, buy smaller bags, keep them in a cool and dry place and in the original packaging. But why is that? First of all, as soon as you open the bag, the oxidation process starts. Meaning, when exposed to air, fats in the food can oxidize, leading to rancidity. Not only does this affect the taste and smell, but rancid fats also lose their nutritional value and can produce harmful free radicals. These free radicals might increase the risk of long-term health problems in dogs, including cell damage and inflammation. To slow down the oxidation process, it's important that you limit the food's exposure to air, and keeping the kibble in its original packaging can help because the bags are often designed with oxygen barrier to preserve freshness. When scooping out the food, remember to always reseal the bag immediately, as leaving the container open for long periods can speed up the oxidation process. That's also the reason why I mentioned that buying dog food in large quantities, especially if you have a smaller dog, isn't a good idea, as doing so can increase the chance that the food will oxidize before it's fully consumed. Let's move to the importance of finding a proper space to store your dog's food. And just like oxidation, aflatoxins are often the result of improper storage, mainly when exposed to moisture and warmth, as these are the ideal conditions in which the mold can grow. But first, what are these aflatoxins? Aflatoxins are toxic compounds produced by certain types of mold, specifically Aspergillus species, which can grow on crops before or after they are harvested. Aflatoxins are extremely resilient. Boiling doesn't destroy them, and they don't change the appearance, smell or taste of food, making it almost impossible for pet owners or dogs to detect contamination. When a dog eats food contaminated with aflatoxins, the toxins are absorbed in the small intestine and enter the bloodstream by binding to other proteins. Some animals possess a natural defense in detoxifying aflatoxins, however, dogs aren't one of them, which makes makes them particularly vulnerable to aflatoxin poisoning. And that can lead to serious health problems, especially liver damage, since the liver is the organ that processes toxins. In severe cases, prolonged exposure can even be fatal. This is especially concerning because many dogs eat the same commercial dry food every day over long periods. So, even if the contamination levels are low, consistent exposure can lead to health problems over time. That's why storage is very important. So move that back to the house and keep it in a dry and cool place. And if you want to go a step further, go to your local pet shop where you buy the food and see where that particular food is stored. Is it stored at the back where it's relatively cool, or at the front where there's a risk of sunlight reaching the bag and increasing the temperature inside? Let's move to wet dog food, which requires refrigeration after opening. Once you open the tin, it should be used within 2 to 3 days. If your pup hasn't finished its meal, cover it and store in the fridge, as if left in the bowl, it can quickly attract bacteria or even pests. And while unopened tins can be stored in your cupboard, once exposed to air, bacteria can multiply really fast, so don't let it stand for too long, even in the fridge. Always make sure you transfer the food to an airtight container as opposed to leaving the tin top open and exposing it to air, which can lead to bacterial growth. I'm sure I don't have to remind you that, but just in case I do, please check the expiration date before feeding wet food to your dog. If the tin is expired or shows signs of swelling or damage, discard it immediately. Don't risk it. Now, last but not least, raw dog food. Despite some vets criticizing raw feeders and warning about the dangers, if you look at the pet food recalls or pet deaths caused by food type, it's kibble that's taking the lead. So, in my opinion, raw is as safe as any other food, if you use caution and proper hygiene when handling, that is. Benji is raw fed and we're both still here, so let's get to the storage tips. Raw food needs to be kept frozen until ready to serve, so that's easy. If you have a larger dog like this one here, I would recommend getting a separate freezer. This way, all-day food will be stored in separate place, which can add that extra protection against contamination if you're worried. When defrosting, put the food in the refrigerator and once thawed, use it within 24 to 48 hours and always clean your dog's feeding area and bowls immediately after every meal. Wash your hands thoroughly after handling your pup's raw food, same as you would with your raw meat, to prevent cross-contamination, and make sure to disinfect any surfaces or utensils used. Ideally, use separate utensils, chopping boards, and have a dedicated area in your kitchen for portioning your pup's meals if you're doing DIY. Stay organized and label containers to keep track of how long the raw food has been frozen to make sure you use the oldest food first. And remember, the longer the food stays in the freezer, the more nutrients it's losing. So whilst buying in bulk is a great idea, don't buy for more than a month's supply. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have a topic that you'd like us to cover next, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.